does that lead into making more courses that you have to pay for? And is that a good thing?
I'm all for pay to play. I've been all for pay to play since I was out on tour back in the early 2000s.
Real issue is designing courses that will cater to the elite, but not be completely empty when they're gone because nobody else can play them with any degree of efficacy.
That day, a sizable percentage of the top Frisbee players in the world fell off the map. We literally lost half of our top athletes in a day. You remember that, Greg?
Hi, I'm JohnE McCray.
I'm Scott Stokely.
I'm Ron Convers.
I'm Brian Schweberger.
I'm Gregg Hosfeld, and you're listening to the Clankers podcast.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Clankers podcast. Super excited to bring this one to you guys. This one was definitely different for us. We had multiple guests. We had a total of 5 guests on today, and just some of the topics we got into. It was a really, really great time, and hopefully we can do something like this more in the future if you guys enjoyed it. But Quentin, what did you think about today's episode?
Yeah, today really is something that we have not done before. We've been planning this for quite a while, ever since we had JohnE McCray on the show. Him and I and Horatio had been in discussions of doing a show like this, and we wanted to bring some legends of the game together. You know, Horatio and I, we've said it plenty of times. We're COVID players. We don't know what happened in the 80s. We don't know who was winning all those championships in the 90s. We never got to see those guys. So we wanted to bring some of those older incredible disc golfers together and learn from them, hear what their opinions were, what were some stories that they had, what do they think about disc golf today, those kinds of things. We wanted to pay our dues and learn from those who came before us, and I think that's exactly what we did in this episode. And we went for almost 2 hours. I'm not exactly sure how long we went for yet, and we haven't finished editing it yet, but it was so much fun. Hopefully, if you guys enjoy it, you can subscribe to the channel, you can leave us a 5-star rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We really appreciate all those ratings and reviews, and it really helps us in the algorithm. So thank you so much for everyone who has been doing that. And it is one of those shows where I think we're going to go ahead and split this up into 2 parts. You're going to hear part 1 this week. You're going to hear part 2 next week. So super excited to bring it to you. So let's quit talking and let's go ahead and let's bring in all these incredible disc golfers. We've already had him on the show once before. JohnE McCray, how are we doing tonight, man?
Doing great. How y'all doing?
Fantastic. Scott Stokely, long time since we've chatted last. It was a blast. I probably shout your episode so many times to new followers and new listeners because of those gosh darn putting tips that have helped my game so much. How are we doing, Scott?
I am doing fantastic, and thank you so much for spreading the word.
Ron, your episode is coming up. Moving down to Wichita, I have heard so much about you, and now that I'm able to kind of meet with you and talk to you, super excited to kind of pick your brain here today. How are we doing tonight, man?
Doing good. It's going to be good to talk to you, and I look forward to talking to you in the future.
Greg, man, There is not enough to say about your game and what you have done in disc golf. Super excited to continue to have your individual episode as well upcoming. How are we doing tonight?
Fabulous. Just great to see all these great faces and friends from decades back. It's wonderful.
And same thing goes to you, Brian. I know we've got your single episode coming up as well here in a little bit. Super excited to have you. How are we doing tonight?
Doing very well. Getting ready to pack up to go to a tournament down in Myrtle Beach tomorrow.
Nice. We taking a W home, right?
Hopefully 2 of them. It's 2 one-day CPs.
All right. Well, let's kind of kick this thing off with, who has been playing disc golf the longest? Who would you say has been playing the longest? When did we start?
Could be me. I started, my first tournament was, 76, I think.
What's everyone's PDGA number?
Ooh, that's a good one.
I'm 1602.
I think Ron's got you beat.
I think he does, actually.
No.
No?
96-38.
Okay.
31-4.
What about you, John?
5'2".
And I'm 12989. I'm the highest in this.
Okay. So that's pretty crazy. Just the difference in PDGA numbers. And I know I just got mine. I think I'm like 196, like 959 or something like that. So you could probably take your PDGA number and like quadruple it, take it to the 10th value, and you still might not be where I'm at. So Greg, let's start with you. So what was disc golf like for you when you first found disc golf?
Well, when I first found disc golf, it was part of actually overall. I don't know if you've ever heard of Jeff Watson. He was the second ever PDGA world champion. And I ran into him in 76. And actually, my next door neighbor came over, played a lot of football in the street and a lot of Frisbee games on our particular cul-de-sac. He comes over and goes, "Hey, man, the Florida State champs are doing a demo of my pro football game. You want to go?" And I'm like, let's see how good these guys really are, And I showed up, and it was Mark and Jeff Watson, two phenomenal overall players, and they just blew me away. They were doing freestyle. So I made my neighbor throw Frisbee with me outside the only gate through which they could leave. And when they did leave, they saw me throwing, and they invited me out to a practice that Sunday. I showed up, and I followed him around for 4 years until I beat him. Took a while, but so yeah, I learned from Jeff Watson. Was 83 world champ. And as a matter of fact, that year he also won the US Open overall, the only guy to win it, breaking up Scott Zimmerman's 8 out of 9 streak. So that was pretty cool too. So I had a good teacher.
Would you say were some, fundamentals, I guess, differently back then that you see to a new player starting now? Were there different stuff that you focused on, starting out back then?
The discs we were using obviously were, just regular weighted whammos. That's pretty much what there was at the time. I was just trying to keep up at that point. Jeff was very, very smooth. I'd be out there with Nike Sharks on and all laced up and tight, and he was out throwing me wearing flip-flops. It was degrading. but eventually, just watching him, Jeff was very smooth as a thrower. I just remember asking, how do you get that kind of power just so smooth? And he's like, well, you just kind of grab it and reach back, and all of a sudden it's like, bam, there it is. Okay. So it didn't really, he wasn't a teacher. He was somebody that I just had to emulate and follow. But we had a lot of really good overall players. We basically learned all of the Frisbee skills. Disc golf was just one of them. We played ultimate and freestyle and MTA and all that. So a lot of the disc golf skills also came through doing other overall events as well.
What part of the country were you in during that time? Because I remember an episode we did with Juliana Corver. She kind of had the same experience as that, just, being a well-rounded like disc thrower, not necessarily disc golf. What part of the country were you in?
I was born and raised in Sarasota, and I was there for quite a while, most of the up until early 80s. And then I started traveling.
Did anyone else kind of have that, I don't know, like introduction to disc golf, and maybe not necessarily disc golf being the number one, but just being like a well-rounded Frisbee thrower? Did anyone else kind of have that experience, or was it always has been disc golf?
So back in the early days, the sport was barely called Frisbee golf. The sport was called Frisbee. Like, you just played Frisbee, and you like, not me, everybody played all the different events. Like, we hadn't figured out as a culture yet which of the events were going to be most popular. The first competitive game was Guts. Ultimate took off, and then Frisbee golf, was slow to take hold, but was popular. But we played everything. You had to back
and
then.
with one disc most of the time.
Yeah. Well, why would you need two?
Can't throw two at a time.
Ultimate Frisbee definitely had, it's still growing and competitive. You see it in colleges and whatnot. I feel like if you're in the world of disc golf, you would say that disc golf is maybe taken off at a faster pace and probably will outgrow Ultimate, and maybe already has. What do you think it was about, from that time that it started, that made disc golf more popular or attracted more people to it, as opposed to some of these other categories of Frisbee?
Well, first off, I challenge your assumption that disc golf is more popular than Ultimate, because Ultimate is pretty darn big right now. It's televised as a team sport. It's picked up by a number of colleges and very popular. I think that the numbers are probably well over what disc golf has seen, partly because it's a team sport, but also because it's been around a long time. We all gravitated towards individual sports, probably because of our one, athleticism, two, competitiveness. And I would expect that the folks that you're talking to tonight have all touched, at least played a little bit with a normal whammo or a regular whip frisbee or an ultimate disc, probably before they picked up a disc made specifically for disc golf. And that's, it just sort of chased it from there. Throwing things in the air is fun to play. I just like throwing things, and I'm sure these guys do. And then when I got introduced to it, I bet I could beat my friend throwing this thing in the air. And we were really competitive. And yeah, you just go from there. Pretty soon it was, I wonder how good the people are that travel around and play this for money. Oh, hey, we're going to beat them too. Well, maybe not right off the bat, but stay after it. It's possible. Anybody else?
I never really got into the other disc sports too much, but as a kid growing up, I threw frisbees out in the yard, like Gregg was saying, out in the street with my older brothers and friends. So I was throwing a lid around as probably eight years old. So I threw around frisbees a lot when I was a kid, but I never really got into any of the other disc sports so much. I did when I first started getting into tournaments. We played in some state championships here in Florida that did have overall. It was a lot of fun with that. So once you joined pro, you had to do freestyle, which I was never a freestyler. So that was lacking in that portion of the all around. But I was definitely started as a disc golfer, I would say.
How much of the, I guess, athleticism portion would you say attracts yourself or other people to playing disc golf as opposed to like ultimate? I mean, you guys have been playing for a long time. Let's say if you had gone down the ultimate path, do you think you would still be playing just because of the difference in, the toll it takes kind of on your body?
Even in ball sports, people that are into aerobic activities are going to gravitate towards basketball and soccer. And people who are into anaerobic activities are going to be into bowling and billiards. And it really truly is a different skill set. There's very, very little crossover between a high level athlete and those two sports. I mean, we're just wired differently. I mean, I hate to call out like Brody in this case, but the transition Brody's made from ultimate and disc golf as a disc golf teacher, it is astonishing that somebody has crossed over. I don't think there's going to be many people like that.
I tend to think that disc golf is where a lot of old ultimate players go when they lose their wheels. Kind of, it's just sort of a natural progression. They're not going to be able to get out there and do wind sprints, but they still want to throw. So I see a lot of people coming in off of ultimate late in the game, but they may not be championship level caliber, but they still have that background throwing. And
yes, I agree. I actually didn't play ultimate, but I played college soccer and semi-pro soccer. So as soon as when too many injuries through that, and then that's what got me into disc golf. So yeah, it's kind of almost the same thing. A lot like Gregg said, I lost my wheels. I found them in disc golf.
A few years ago, the PDGA made up a sport called Superclass. I don't know if any of you guys played it. It was a disc golf limited disc selection sport where the fastest disc was
pretty much a Zephyr.
Zephyr was the fastest disc, and it was a ton of fun. I enjoyed it. We went for the Superclass championships in Kansas and had a blast up there. And I'm sure that, I don't know if you guys have ever played it, but throwing disc golf with lids is a whole different deal than throwing disc golf with disc golf discs, as far as how far you can throw them, what you can do with them, and all the fun stuff that you can't manipulate them like you would a disc golf disc. So
getting it in the basket is a way tougher part. Yeah, I played a couple Superclass tournaments. And yeah, the putting aspect is completely different because the grip is so much different on the old school lids versus the putters that we use today. And they're lighter, so you have to throw it a little bit harder to make it absorb into the heavy chains that we have in all the baskets now.
You know, a real interesting thing, and I know at least Greg can attest to this, because I started playing in '76 as a little kid. But when beveled edge discs came out in 1983, that day, a sizable percentage of the top Frisbee players in the world fell off the map because it's such a different type of skill and different type of throw. Any of those players that continued to try to throw golf discs the way they threw Frisbees all of a sudden went from being like at the highest level to, struggling to cash. And then a percentage of them made the transition and learned to throw differently. But we literally lost half of our top athletes in a day. Do you remember that, Greg?
I do. I mean, I was just watching some old footage of John Kirkland throwing accuracy, and every throw was a huge air bounce. And I tell people that an air bounce or nose up creates artificial stability, which you needed for those old lids. You needed to give it an air bounce in order to keep the stability level. They're flying with the nose up like this and they're going straight. And you can't do that with a golf disc, So yeah,
world changed in a day, overnight.
Do you think, and this goes to anyone as well, do you think there's anything that could happen to like disc golf right now that would have the same impact that did, where just half the field just cannot perform at the same level anymore? Can you think of anything that could maybe cause that nowadays?
Maybe if we use bullseye targets.
I'm all for the smaller basket.
I was going to say that's very interesting. That's some, top level pros, people that we've interviewed, and a lot of them, have mentioned one thing to make the sport more competitive or more fun, I guess, is smaller baskets. What do you guys think about that? You can go ahead and get started, Brian, since you kind of said you're all for it.
Yeah, it'll put more of a factor on the approach. 25 to 30 footer is like almost a tap in our sport at the top level, and that's a tap in for like traditional golf is like a 2 to 3 footer because the target is so much smaller. I think just making the target smaller will make everybody focus more on having a better finesse game, getting their discs closer to the target. So with the basket being smaller, it'll put more focus on that aspect.
Anybody disagree?
We've gone a long ways around designing baskets that will catch better, more chains, horizontal chains, link chains, cross chains, all this other stuff. All they got to do is go back to a Mach 1 and all of a sudden your finesse game is right there. But I don't see that happening.
We do that. I'm going back to Zephyr Golf, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see this isn't an original idea. I don't disagree at all. The idea of having smaller baskets at the highest level, I'm not a ball golfer, but from what I've heard, the PGA greens are greens that would, I couldn't putt on those. And if you're a bowler, the oil patterns on the PBA tour, if you did those at a local league night, people would quit because they would realize how not good they are at bowling. So there's precedent for setting a higher standard for the highest level. I think it'd be interesting.
Instead of adding all this extra artificial OB to all these courses that are already great in their own right,
I was going to say another thing that we've really gone to is making sure that the putting area, the 30, the 10 meters around the basket is all clear and easy to access and all that other good crap. And I'm a big fan of having obstacles that make you have to place your approach, or that make you have to come in from one side or the other if you want to throw a putt in. And that's not something that I hear about much at the top level either. They still like to be able to throw from wherever they land and have a chance at it. And I disagree with that philosophy. I want to see the approach game picked up. You want to putt, throw it where it needs to be.
I couldn't agree more, Ron. When they when they have an area 30 or 40 feet open around the green, that would be like on the PGA Tour saying, when you're within 10 feet of the cup, it has to be perfectly flat.
Yeah.
And like that negates the whole strategy. Like, yeah, I'm 100% with you on that one.
I had an idea about baskets. I had said it on the interview before with the Chain Clankers podcast, but I think they should put sheet metal around pretty much like almost a little bit more than half of the basket. Eliminate the pole in the middle, then you don't have bounce outs. You can't go through. You can't spit all the way through. Once you go in, you're not coming back out, and you can only access the basket from one side of the green. So instead of moving the basket, you just turn the basket. So now, second round, you got to throw past the basket to make the putt.
Have you guys?
That's something I've always thought of.
Have you played Stevens Point in Washington? Or Lake Stevens, not Lake Stevens. The Lake Stevens baskets. Hopefully, we'll put the podcast up. So every basket on the course is different, but they have PVC pipe in half circles. But then there could be one on one side and not the other, meaning your putting area is twice as large from one side as the other. And it's silly looking because we're not used to it, but it is way more fun because you actually have to make decisions where you want to land. Do I go for this putt? Because if I miss it, my comeback putt is going to be way harder than it would be the other way. And it makes you make decisions, which I think is good.
I agree with all of those statements. First on, making the baskets smaller, as well as adding a little bit of difficulty to the green. I know I tell Horatio all the time, I'm like, when there's a course where you have 18 holes where every single green is wide open, there's nothing going on, that's very boring to me. I've been a big fan of elevated baskets, changing up the greens, doing anything you can to make the green just a little bit different on every single hole, I think provides uniqueness to the sport as well as more difficulty to it. Because something that I was thinking about while you guys were discussing that was, it is fun to see players get all those birdies, especially with disc golf getting on ESPN more and stuff like that. And it kind of brought up a little bit of debate in my own head of, is it better for professional disc golf that's being on ESPN, Fox Sports, CBS, whatever it is, maybe it's just Joe Mez, but is it better for the professional game to be sitting at a point where somebody can win a tournament, kind of like Eagle McMahon last year at the Las Vegas Challenge, where he was like -40? Is that better? Or is it better to be a little bit closer to the PGA Tour, where the guy or gal who ends up winning is maybe under par, maybe they're 5 strokes under par? Is it better to have those wider margins, or do you think it's more competitive, more entertaining to be closer to par disc golf?
Real issue is designing courses that will cater to the elite, but not be completely empty when they're gone, because nobody else can play them with any degree of efficacy. As a course designer, a lot of the courses that I design, I don't put tees in that are for the elite player. I have them in my head, and if we run an event where we have a high degree of elites, then I would say, yeah, let's put these temp tees in, or put another tee in that actually does cater to them. But they're so far and above a good portion of the playership that, to me, as a course designer, it's very difficult to justify building courses that cater to that high degree, because we're trying to grow the sport as well as nurture the athletes. So there's a really thin line there that you have to tread. So it's difficult. The venues have to be able to support that.
So I have a question for everybody then, because I'm not a ball golfer, but one of the things that I've thought, because I've heard your argument before. I mean, a lot of people feel that way, but in ball golf, people pay a lot of money to go out to a course and shoot 95 or 105 because it's a championship course. Like, that doesn't make people not want to go to Pebble Beach or Augusta, does it? Like, do you think that our culture is so different that players don't want to play? Do you think so?
I do, yes.
You're a course designer. You have a better take on it than I do, because I don't put things in my, feedback.
Yeah, I mean, here's an interesting thing. Course that we put in there, 9 holes on 6 acres, and they don't get good reviews, but constant foot traffic, and it's kind of a weird anomaly. The more challenging courses do get really good reviews. So you may be right, but a good percentage of our playership, they want to play and they don't necessarily want a huge challenge. I see that a lot. I mean, a lot of people like that recreational game. We're talking about two different things. You're talking about high caliber competition, and I'm talking about just recreational players, I guess. But I don't know. I tend to think that there's definitely space for both. Absolutely a need for both.
95% of ball golfers do not ever break 100. 95%.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely a difference between ball golf and disc golf as far as the difficulty ratings go.
Well, you're paying a big hefty greens fee at a golf course. You want to play more golf.
I think it's very interesting. I think we're in a time, especially with all the people that have recently discovered disc golf. I guess the separation between disc golfers and professional disc golfers is very small. They're still very approachable. They're still almost kind of the same people. You might know them through someone else. They're just regular people that are going on tour and playing, as opposed to, ball golfers. They're completely different people. Your people that play on a weekend and the people you play on tour, they couldn't be more farther apart. They're totally different players. And I think, as disc golf evolves and grows, I think it will eventually become kind of the same. I think right now we're still in that stage where I'm going to go play the same course, that Eagle McMahon can go play. He's obviously going to shoot a different score than me, but I still feel that connection because he's still kind of a normal person. I don't think that, in 10 years, disc golfers are going to be playing the same courses that we are today. Like, we're not going to be able to go and play the courses that are on Pro Tour. I think the courses will probably be created for them specifically so that they can be challenging and entertaining to the people.
That's kind of happening now, though, isn't it? There's quite a few courses that are being played that are more open and cater more to people that can throw 400, 500, 600 feet. Because, it's easier to televise. It's easier to get a gallery out there because a lot of our courses are so heavily wooded that you can't get a gallery out there. It's hard to get a camera crew and get your angles. So a lot of that's happening already, I think. We're on that track, I think.
Go ahead,
the
Johnny.
Portable phones and being able to film with the cell phone and stuff like that, it also came in at just a really good time for disc golf, so that now we can start, you or I can go out there and take pictures and film. And no, it's not going to be as good a quality where you're not going to be able to zoom in on the flight of disc or anything like that all the time. But you'll be able to get the idea across. And some of our portable cameras now are way better than what the portable cameras were even 5 years ago. And I can take it out. I'm connected by internet, even somewhere, in VFE. A lot of times, if I can't get a signal, I can film it and upload it later. And I don't really think that we had that capability even a short time ago. So a lot of the inaccessible courses there was no way we could film before are now accessible and could be filmed if they wanted to.
One question I had to follow up on that, just based on courses in the Pro Tour, we both came into disc golf, through that COVID timeframe, and so we have not been around as long. But one thing that I kind of dislike about the Pro Tour, I guess the tour, is they play the same tournaments, the same locations every single year. Do you think that is something that should change, that there should be more variety on the Pro Tour, just for, I guess, a more challenging aspect, because players are like, oh yeah, I know that course. I can get out there, 2 days, whatever, get out and practice it. And because I've played it so many times, should there be more variety on the Pro Tour?
They use those courses, I feel like, because those are the ones that are actually probably some of the tougher ones. There's a lot more that are being built. At Eagles Crossing is one of them. I feel like should be part of it eventually, but courses are getting tougher, and they're going to have to push the players, I feel like, because, I mean, all the tournaments, if we went to a normal disc golf course, the players like Ricky and Paul, they're going to shoot 18 unders and 17 unders, 16 unders on a course that, you know, that normal advanced player is going to shoot 5, 8 under on, you know what I mean? Those guys are going to light it up. And I feel like if they have to play tougher courses. So I feel like a course like Jonesboro, where they are still shooting pretty good, but it has all that length to combat it, which really eliminates any amateur from doing good out there, to be honest with you. Not that an amateur can't throw far, but it's just that those are some demanding courses that it's, I feel like even the Memorial, they kind of took that away from the Pro Tour because, you know, everybody's shooting lights out there in Arizona. So they kind of, after a while, I know the people watching were tired of watching it. So, you know, Heiser Fest, I remember seeing a bunch of people saying, oh, it's a Heiser Fest, but, you know, and it really was. But so they got to make the courses harder. That's basically what they got to do for the top division.
Thinking about that further, I remember hearing that the Las Vegas Challenge last year was arguably the worst received tournament by the fans because of how easy it looked and what the scores were. And it makes a lot of sense. And so it kind of brings me to the question, Brian, I'll start with you. Do you think that playing on ball golf courses is going to continue to be good for that Disc Golf Pro Tour, for disc golf in general, or should there be more of that consensus movement towards building out our own courses? I feel as though it's almost easy to put something on a ball golf course and, you know, maybe make a little bit of artificial OB here and there. Maybe, you know, the sand traps are OB or something like that. Do you think that disc golf should move in a position to where they're building more on old or maybe still current ball golf courses, or should they continue to kind of build out their own courses and challenge the top players in a different way?
I think they should be built out on non-ball golf. Usually the ball golf courses cater to the big arms. I mean, that's all well and good for them, but the majority of the people, like only like the top, like top 5 or 7 players that are going to be finishing in the top 5 in any of those courses. You have to be able to bomb multiple times on one hole just to have a chance at a birdie and possibly an eagle. And a lot of the other 3 players in the field can't even come close to them. I think getting more woods involved is definitely. I'm definitely on private property too. I mean, you got to get out of the public course scene as far as any major events go.
One complaint, you know, or something I saw where players were upset because they were trying to practice and there were so many people walking around, just, you know, just regular casual players. They were wanting to play while the pros were practicing. So I totally agree on that about, you know, private courses. I believe Eagles Crossing is on private property as well. Where do you think that will just come from fans of disc golf? You know, how does that lead into making more courses that you have to pay for? And is that a good thing?
I'm all for pay to play. I've been all for pay to play since I was out on tour back in early 2000s. My favorite course was Byard to Ask in Madison, Wisconsin, Token Creek Park, and I was only there 2 or 3 times a year, but I bought a year-round membership for it. And it was only open 7, 8 months out of the year because they closed it during the winter so that the ground couldn't get torn up.
Yeah, one of the things, and I think probably everybody here has been up and played in Maine, and the culture of Maine is very much about pay-to-play disc golf courses. And what ends up happening in a free market is when there's a couple pay-to-play courses in the area and people are trying to make a living, the tee pads get swept, they put in benches, there's shelters, like they're trying to bring in business. So there's an incentive, financial incentive to make a better experience. The only loss is the player has to pay $5 or $7, but that's, you know, you get a better experience for it. 100%.
I'm interested to hear other opinions on that as well. Like, Ron, I'll start with you. Pay to play disc golf, I feel, is like such a heated topic. There's very much 2 camps of, no, I will not go to a course because I have to pay extra money for it. Or yes, I do appreciate the added benefits of that pay to play course. I know, Horatio, I think you and I have played maybe 1 pay to play course. And
I mean, we have the farm.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Not something that I feel I'm going to go to often or spend the money to go to a lot, but maybe once a year it's worth it. What are your thoughts, Ron?
Okay, so pay to play means that somebody has spent some money, one, investing in designing the course or coming up with a design that people will play. And two, the amenities that are there. Hopefully they'll have a clubhouse where you can go and grab a bite or something to drink, talk to whoever. Maybe if you need a new disc because you just threw one in the pond, you can get a disc there. And you know, all the stuff that you would do at a normal clubhouse at a regular ball golf course. You'll have a course pro who will be able to help you out with tips, maybe give you lessons, all that sort of stuff. You're going to have people maintaining the course. You have an ice storm come through. They come out with a crew, they clean that crap up. They mulch the baskets, they mulch around the tee pads, they keep everything up. They go out, they shovel the tee pads in bad weather. They, you know, all the stuff that you wouldn't find at the public municipal golf course. It gets cleaned up whenever the city comes out and can throw some time towards taking care of it. If they don't have the time, it's last on the list. So having a pay to play means that it's geared towards what you want. And yeah, I love playing good pay to pay. The downfall is whenever you go to a place that is pay to play and they don't have those amenities. If they don't offer service to equal, or if they don't have a venue that is interesting and challenging and all that other good stuff, then I'm not going to go there very often. If I go and I'm challenged and I have a good time, I'm going to come back. And like Brian said, I'm going to pay for the yearly membership if I make it there 2 or 3 times a year, just so I can support that venue and have it available when I want to go back.
Well, and the argument against pay to play misses one key point, and that is forever, for the life of our sport, 80 or 90% of courses are going to be free, because you could put a course in a public park for $10,000. They're going to exist. So it's not that you're giving up free courses because they're all pay to play and now we have to pay to play. You're just being offered something extra, but it doesn't take away from all the free golf that our culture is based around. We're going to have both.
Yeah, and I think one thing people don't understand is, even though we don't have, they don't want pay to play, or there's a lot of courses that are free, they're not really free. Here in Wichita, a lot of our local courses, they're taken care of by volunteers. If there's a storm, like, Ron was talking about, people have to go out there, spend their own time, take out their own tools, clean those courses up. We just got a brand new course in, and they asked if people wanted to sponsor the baskets, to put new baskets out on those courses. So people paid money to put those baskets. So people want to support, and, they're okay paying to have good, decent courses. And, I think pay to play just makes it to where you have something consistent, something permanent. I think what, Ron, you would know the one we're talking about, the farm, but that's on a private property. Beautiful course. We went out there and played it. And I mean, they were mowing it as we were playing it, fresh cut grass. That's one of the only ones that around here that's pay to play, but I don't want to. So could you see more of the pro tour in the future going to private courses just for some of those reasons?
Yeah, they can control who comes in. So you have the opportunity to control the venue. You wouldn't have the amateurs come out and practice while the pros are practicing, if that's the case. You would be able to make sure everything was perfect for the videos that you were going to shoot. You'd be able to manage having all the little loose ends pretty much get covered by having it on a pay-to-play course. A public course, you can't control anything. You go out there and there's a couple having a picnic in the middle of hole 6 or whatever. You can't say, hey, you got to go right now. No, it's a public park, and if they want to stay there, they have a legitimate reason to stay there. So it's tough.
Say about half the courses are pay to play on the Disc Golf Pro Tour right now anyway, to be honest.
Right.
Jonesboro,
Maple Hill.
Maple Hill,
Vermont.
Green Mountain.
Yep.
There's quite a few of them that are pay to play courses. Las Vegas courses, you got to pay to play those. It's a definitely they're out there. Like Brian mentioned earlier, most of Wisconsin has well, not most of Wisconsin, but a certain area of Wisconsin, the whole town is play to play courses. So they come and check your stub, see if you paid, and will kick you out of there, and give you a ticket if you didn't pay for the day. So yeah, it's definitely. There's different pay-to-play places like that are on somebody's private property. I remember one on a Cabin Creek outside of Cincinnati back years ago. It was on a guy's private property, and that's you see different things. But I remember that place. I wish that place was still around.
Yeah, the Erkenbreckers.
Erkenbreckers, I was going to say Erkenbreckers.
So a question I have then is, I see the value of pay to play courses. I can understand, the amenities, challenging course, fun, all that stuff. I can understand that. What do you think would go into that decision calculus of what is the correct price for pay to play? There's a lot of people who say, ball golf is way too gosh darn expensive. I'll only play once or twice a year if I'm lucky. And I understand, Scott, you made up the great point of 80% of the courses are still going to be free. But if you are going to want to go to one, maybe it's a more championship level, maybe it's just nicer, maybe you can drink there, whatever it is. Greg, I know you also mentioned earlier being a course designer. What start this conversation off. What do you think is that proper pricing strategy for somebody out there who is maybe wanting to make their private land now a private disc golf course? What would kind of go into that, do you think?
And I don't think you can assign a number as a blanket number. Obviously, it has to go on an individual basis. What does your course have to offer, and what will the market bear? I mean, a lot of pay-to-play courses are what, $2, $5, $10. And all that's pretty reasonable. Eagles Crossing, that's what, 25, isn't it? It's but I know that they've invested at least $500,000 into that venue. And so, they're hoping to bump it up a level, create a precedent that we hadn't seen before. And I think it's happening.
Yeah, I'll even add. Actually, they're at $1.5 million right now, which is astonishing. But I would say the price of that is, the more you charge, the fewer players that show up. You charge the amount of money that shows you the greatest profit because you're a business. That's where your price should be. What's going to make you the most money for your business, which is running a competitive athletic facility.
Yeah, I agree with what Ron said earlier about if you have a yearly membership, players are more likely to spend that yearly membership, especially if it's a decent park or private course to go to. They will buy that yearly membership. So I feel like a yearly membership is something that they should offer, because disc golfers would definitely be more into paying a yearly membership over paying $5 or $10 every time.
Well, you have to weigh into the fact that more players also buy more discs at the pro shop and spend more money doing other things as well. But that's just all part of the model. I don't think Eagles Crossing's goal is to show a profit. I think they have enough money in where profit primary agenda. I talked to Philip actually quite frequently. Philip Samuels, the owner, and his motives are a little bit different. He just wants to have the best and greatest for our sport. But he's an outlier. That's not the normal model, obviously.
Yeah. So, let's talk a little bit about, let's say you guys, for instance, you had the money, to build a beautiful course that was going to be pay to play, and you were going to do a membership. What would, your ideal course look like? What amenities would you have? What stuff would you do to attract players to do a membership, come back? For instance, I'll start off. I feel like it would be fun to have a course where it's pay to play. You have a membership and you have like a shop. And in the wintertime, you can host like a putting league where people can still use and get money out of their membership in the winter and practice putting, or maybe like a throwing green or something like that. So what's some stuff that you guys might think of, a pay-to-play course that you would design with a membership? What amenities would you have at your course?
Being down here in Florida, which we see a lot of the touring players come down here during the winter, having a place for them to camp at, park at, plug in at, and a place for them to go out and play has been there's a spot up in Jacksonville that has been doing that and letting the pros come down and play and camp on their property and do all that. I think that's would be super helpful to help out and help grow and keep things going down here in Florida, which we don't see a lot of the pro tour, the big tours, but we have golf here 24/7 every day. I think that's something that's I think is pretty good for helping out the everybody in the pro tours and everything is just having somewhere they can go during the off season.
I think a great example. I think that is a really good one. And I think another great example is, if you've ever heard of the Grange, it's called the Blockhouse now. But the amenities that it has an 18-hole little pitch and putt tiki course that you can play every hour of the day because every hole is lit up. It has 2 championship level 18-hole golf courses. It has a pool. It has a hot tub. It has all the old school arcade video games that you could ever think of playing. It has a bar and grill set up on the property as well, and they have a yearly membership there, and it's one of the best places you could ever go. Take a bunch of people to and experience what country club disc golf is. It's absolutely amazing.
Gosh, there's so much to think about here with this, but I built originally. And Johnny knows this. The original, I'm sure you're familiar with the Throw Down the Mountain event that Sun King's running now, but originally it was called the Grand Canyon. I guess they still call it that. That place has amenities, just extreme disc golf, essentially. And I think that people flocked to that place when they were able. It didn't have steady hours because it was a private course. And the guy wasn't about to have his entire schedule dictated by disc golf. But at the same time, when he was there, he loved having us there. If you're going to build a course that's going to be pay to play, it's got to offer something more than your standard public park. I would like to have taken that a lot further and had a clubhouse and all of that kind of thing. But we were not able to do that, being that the owner himself wasn't a disc golfer. He enjoyed us being there. But bottom line is, he wasn't fully 100% on board with it. But yeah, you just need to offer above and beyond what you can get at a public park. One of the things that I'm doing right now that I'm really enjoying exploring is doing courses with dual tees and dual baskets, so that every fairway plays 4 different ways. And if I'm doing my job, I'm not stacking the tee pads in line. I'm not putting the baskets in line. So the only variable is length, trying to make it so that each option is different. And these are still free to play public courses. Interestingly enough, there's a place nearby here with some fantastic land. And I'm trying to think to myself, how can I pitch this guy I'm putting a course in? We've got some really killer free courses right down the road. And what can I offer this guy? Because it would have to be a pay to play on his private property. And quite frankly, I'm still kicking that around, trying to decide how I can approach this guy to build a pay to play venue when we have several really good venues here in the area, which, by the way, we're going to be pitching for a Solinsky one of these days sometime soon. So I'll be seeing all you guys down there eventually.
Alrighty, guys, that is going to wrap up this episode of the Chain Clankers Disc Golf Podcast. Hopefully you've enjoyed so far. If you have, make sure you leave a like rating on YouTube and that 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Make sure you come back next Monday for the rest of the discussion. We're going to be continuing a conversation on pay-to-play disc golf, as well as we're going to be talking about the Pro World Championships and so much more. You're not going to want to miss everyone's top tip for getting better. Make sure you subscribe today and come on back, as well as at the end of the show, I did want to send out our thoughts and prayers, and hopefully all of you can be praying for JohnE McCray as well. He did have a medical incident during a tournament this last weekend, so our hearts are all with Johnny. We are praying for Johnny, and hopefully he he and his family can get healthy very soon. Johnny, we love you and are hoping nothing for the best for you, man. Thank you for listening to the Chain Clankers podcast. Make sure you follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Chain Clankers and hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening to us from so you never miss another episode.